Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sons Show. That's at the Loyal Sons on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us there and follow us here for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. If you love the view from the top of the conference and hate ACC disrespect, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sons Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix, presented by Section 5. My name is David, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Squid and Dylan, and we have a great show for you today. Pitt Wrestling assistant coach Drew Headlee joined us to talk about the Pitt Wrestling Panthers, their season thus far, and the way they are heating up just in time for the ACC and NCAA tournaments. But first, Pitt basketball is undefeated this week.
We're number one. We're number one.
That's right. You heard that chant correctly. We are currently the number one team in the ACC, the top of the conference, the head of our class.
Just as we all predicted back in November.
Saw it coming a mile away. So do we do this? We ask this every week. Do we do this chronologically and talk about the ass whooping against Louisville first, or do we talk about what's fresh and exciting, which was the comfortable or pleasant win against Florida State?
My singular note for the Louisville game was comically bad, referring to the Louisville basketball team.
I have never laughed during a basketball game more than I did during that Pitt Louisville game. Dylan and I were there. Pretty solid crowd, given the fact that we're facing a team that was 3-20 at the time, and they played like a 3-20 team. They warmed up like a 3-20 team. They were diving on the floor, missing the ball. They couldn't do anything, and it was so funny. It was like Pitt was the Globetrotters.
I would turn around and Squid would just be like laughing maniacally, just like belly laughing, cracking up at something a Louisville player did. And yeah, it's pretty bad. The fall from grace that program has had. Kenny Payne, obviously in his first year, not many schools will fire a guy after 1 year just for on-court performance, but he's making quite the case.
I've never seen a bench interact with each other less in my entire life. I don't blame the players really for having an absolutely shitty time being a part of a 3-win team. But the contrast between Pitt, like Kenny Payne said it after the game, like the togetherness that Pitt has, like he noticed that. Everyone on the bench goes nuts. The Twins bring the energy on the bench when they're not playing. Like the walk-ons, like Jeffress and everyone else on the end of the bench, they're always involved. The Louisville bench was just like a dozen guys sitting there silent, looking ahead. Absolutely miserable.
My only note from that game is that Pitt shot so well from three that it actually worried me. There's kind of this analogy I have. Donald Trump, the guy who used to host The Apprentice, he has this belief that you are born and live with a certain amount of energy. And like if you work out, you're actually using up energy and then you die sooner. Because again, you have a very finite. This is 100% real. You have a finite amount of energy, like in your body, your whole life, and you shouldn't use it up extraneously. I think that that's dumb, but I have that theory for 3-point shooting, and that Pitt has a very finite amount of 3-pointers they can make over a year stretch, and we might have wasted too many of them against Louisville.
I don't know. With the way this team's played this year, that number might be infinite with the amount of threes they can make. With shooters all over the floor. I know what you're saying. You don't want to waste a bad shooting night. I don't know if there's much basis around that claim. It's kind of just a sports fan paranoia.
Yeah.
But I definitely sometimes am like, we're wasting a bad shooting night on a bad team. Or a good shooting night on a bad team.
Exactly. And we used up all the threes that we could have used in the NCAA tournament or the ACC tournament. So I am worried about that, but happy we kicked the shit out of a dog-ass team. All right, moving on.
We good on Louisville? Okay.
I think we were good on Louisville.
Okay, one more thing.
Okay.
Great Twins game. The Twins were hilarious. They played great. They had, I think, ended up being 10 blocks combined. I know the stats changed. They're awesome.
Yeah,
That's all.
they definitely lead the league in giving me a nice little chuckle. I think every game they have a triple double, a combined triple double with points, rebounds, and giving me
Falling
a
down.
giggle, doing
Falling
something
down is number
funny.
one.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, they're hysterical. Anyone who hasn't listened to them on the Jeff Capel show this past week, it was pretty awesome to hear them. They have a good sense of humor too. It's not just like there is a lot of unintentional comedy with them, but
When you're
they
that
do have
tall
a
and skinny and
That
foreign, yeah.
was Steven Adams. When Steven Adams was an incoming freshman, he did all these interviews, and he was just like a goofball who was clueless. He had never been to America. These kids could have like a show. They could host a podcast, and I'd listen to it. They should come on our
But
podcast, is what I'm saying.
they shouldn't
Yes.
host their own because then no one would listen to us.
Yes, they should come on our show every week. We'll leave it at that.
Squid looking for ways to lose us listeners. On to Florida State.
On to Florida
Yes.
State. So that one was tight, but correct me if you guys felt any differently, but it always felt like, yeah, we got this. Like I wasn't sweating at any point yesterday.
I
Which is
agree.
weird.
It was not until we were actually losing where I thought about getting worried. I was like, oh, wait, this is really happening. We're actually losing right now. And before I could fully comprehend it, Jamarius Burton did the thing where he's like, give me the ball. I'll get us a bucket. And then he did it again. And then we were back in the lead, and I was not worried.
Yeah, it's something about the way we match up with Florida State. I think their length gives Pitt a bit of an issue, but it did feel like anytime Florida State did a really good job of not letting Pitt snowball and go on runs that would pretty much make the game out of reach. But Pitt also did a good job of not letting Florida State string together real long stretches where, keeping Pitt scoreless. Basically, any 8-0, 10-2 runs for Florida State didn't happen. And Pitt really did. It was just like a really mature game. Obviously, like you said, Squid, Jamarius Burton has those stretches where he's like, all right, I know we need a bucket at this point. I'm going to go get it. And he gets you back-to-back mid-range jumpers. Then you have guys like Nike Sabande coming up and off the bench. Sabandi goes to work, hits 2 threes in a row, gets to the hoop, gets you a quick, 10 points and maybe a 3-minute span. So you have a guy like that who's a spark off the bench, and just said it's at this point it's just a recurring theme every week. We have different guys who can step up, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Dylan. Burton, of course, did his thing as he always does, but make no mistake, this was a Nike game. It's actually kind of been a Nike week. I don't really remember what he did against Louisville, but the missed tomahawk into a 3-pointer was all time. But yeah, no, he was the spark Pitt needed when they needed it against Florida State. And given how well Nike has played recently, it put somebody on blast for a atrocious take on him. Somebody tweeted in November, I feel for Nike because he came back for one last shot at college basketball after the torn ACL, but he is unplayable at this point. That was us, but it feels important that we own up to it and take our lashings and be better for it. I mean, I didn't tweet it, one of you guys did, but just bad on our part.
I'll step up. I was the one who sent that original tweet. I also sent the tweet yesterday owning up to it and saying that this is definitely our worst tweet. I will say I know what I tweeted at the time was something I truly felt, and it did feel like he was still getting his bearings back after the torn ACL. And I think a lot of people were in agreement with me. I can also say that it was probably it was definitely way too early to just count him out, that he wasn't going to be able to rebound. You're coming off a torn ACL. You're not ready to trust your knee yet. You've probably played minimal basketball in the last year or so, just getting back to full strength. So it was going to take some time for him to get back to full strength. And boy, has he. Like, this is the guy that we recruited as a transfer out of Miami of Ohio. Obviously, the NCAA screwed up his first year by not clearing him until, I don't know, what was it, the 10th game? Something like that.
Mid-December.
Yeah, mid-December. And then COVID year. Then he has an injury. Like, this is a guy who's had a tough go at it through college and through his college career. And it's awesome to see him excelling now in a role that, that 6-man role for him is that you could argue Pitt without Nike Sabandy this year. If he would have just called it quits, like, hey, I've had a good basketball career. That last injury, I'm 23, 24 years old. Without Nike Sabandy this year, there's probably a couple games that don't end up in the win column for Pitt. He's been a huge difference maker for them, and absolutely just been an awesome spark is the word that keeps being used for him. But he's the perfect 6-man. He's instant offense. When Pitt isn't able to get a bucket, usually Jamarius Burton's the guy they go to, but Nike's been that guy for them a few times this year. And he has been the defender on both the Wake Forest last possession and the UNC last possession that came down to the final shot. He was guarding Appleby, forcing him. Jeff Cable talked about it post-game, forcing him left, did a great job of making him go left, missing that jumper. And then on the Caleb Love fadeaway that wouldn't have counted anyway because he didn't get out of his hands, but Nike got the block on that last possession. So just coming up in big moments for them.
Yeah, first of all, props to us for not deleting the tweet and owning up to it. That's just a great move
Very
by
big of
us. So much integrity, per usual, from the Loyal Sons. Wouldn't expect anything less. Anyway, I can't say that I've looked into who is going to win 6th Man of the Year in the ACC. I have to imagine it'll be Nike Sabandy. I think to make up for our terrible take, we'll start leading the train for Nike Sabandy to win 6th Man of the Year. We might not even have to. We might be the clear-cut winner already. Something I think a lot of people forget, before Nike got here, and I guess after he's been here for a while, he's played in over 100 games. He's scored over 1,500 career points. He's a very good basketball player, very experienced. He knows what he's doing. We should have trusted him to figure it out back in November. He clearly has. He's embraced the role, and perhaps one of the most valuable players on this team.
I did not know that college basketball had a 6th Man of the Year award, let alone for individual conferences. But since I found that out 20 seconds ago, it is now my life's mission to get Nike's name on that award.
Yeah,
and
the
that
ACC has one.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Now my life has meaning again. And
I don't know if there's an NCAA one, but there's an ACC one.
I feel like the media is going to look at Nike's stat line. They're just going to pull it up and be like, oh, this guy's averaging 7.8 points per game. A lot of that's dragged down because I think this is around when this tweet was made. 4 games into the year, his point totals were 6.000. And then after that, he scored 17 against Alabama State. Then he started to round into form a little bit. So those numbers are dragged down. Obviously, in ACC play, those numbers jump up a good bit. And just looking at the history of the ACC 6th Man of the Year award, interestingly enough, Florida State has won the last 4. Odd trend, but I'm going to go ahead and say they're not going to win. Yep. 8 win teams don't get the ACC 6th Man of the Year award, but just for okay. Matthew Cleveland won it last year. He's a starter for them now. Scotty Barnes won it the year before, was a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Patrick Williams was the winner the year before, also a top 5 pick. So that there's a little bit of I'm calling BS on that. You don't just get to put a lottery pick on your bench and then bring him off and he wins the 6th Man of the Year. That feels like
why is a lottery pick on your bench in the first place?
Exactly.
Leonard Hamilton's doing some weird stuff down there.
It sounds like we're just giving Florida State awards for being dumb.
He's bringing 7'4" guys every year. He's putting his best players on the bench to start the game. It's some weird. It works most of the time, but I'm not going to doubt Leonard Hamilton.
Last thing on the Florida State game before we start talking about the tournament picture at large. How do you guys feel about the black and gold uniforms? Saw a lot of conversation and debate about it on Twitter this weekend.
I think there's way too much energy being used discussing whether they're good or bad. Like Pitt wears them 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. I like them. I think they're pretty sharp. This is like the Steel Panther uniforms or whatever we call the the gray football uniforms, but
Those kind of sucked.
recruits seem to like them. Every recruit who comes on a visit takes a picture in those Steel Panther uniforms. Every recruit who comes takes pictures in these Pittsburgh P jerseys. Adds a little bit. Like, we talk about how Pitt basketball is the city of Pittsburgh's team. Like, it adds to that, the black and gold color scheme of all the pro sports teams. So I don't mind it. They wear them like 2 or 3 times. Find something else to complain about.
Don't tempt me to. I can complain about a lot of things.
Yeah, we are Pitt sports fans.
The P, I will say, I'm not crazy about the P.
That's my only thing. I agree with you on everything. I think it's really cool that they're trying to loop it in and make it, a city of Pittsburgh brand Pitt basketball. I just think it could be done better.
Maybe like the Panther head logo, right?
I was thinking they kind of try to make them look like those Pirates uniforms from the 70s and do like Pittsburgh, like full Pittsburgh and Pitt script instead of just the P, which I don't very much like. And then maybe like some white pinstripes. That might be overkill, but I think a script full Pittsburgh across the chest would be sweet.
We have the best colors in sports. Just don't mess up the jerseys. It's not that hard. Make them half decent. We'll be all right.
My bigger gripe is that we don't have
A throwback to the early 2000s.
No, our home gold uniforms aren't like the gold with the blue Pitt script across the chest. It's just the best jersey we have, any combination, and instead we just messed it up.
My biggest complaint is that we do not have the throwback Jerome Lane type uniforms in the arsenal. I think we should have busted those out for the Jerome Lane ceremony game and just went like full throwback. But I guess all the budget's going towards Victory Heights. You can't get too many new uniforms.
I blame Nike. Not Nike Sabandy, Nike the corporation.
I think I just tipped my hand, but yeah, I want a early 2000s throwback, which is funny because we all wanted to get rid of those so badly, but I just can't think of Pitt basketball without them.
Well, here's the thing. Now that we're good, maybe Nike will start paying attention to us and be like, oh, we got to give Pitt something new and fun. Like, we're not going to waste our time giving the 14th best team in the ACC all this new swag. Now that we're at the top of the castle, top of the mountain. Yeah.
Top of the cathedral. I will say with the football uniforms, I'm like, yes, we never have to go back to the old Dion Lewis, Tyler Palco jerseys. Like, those can stay in the closet forever and ever. With Pitt basketball, I just so much relate Pitt basketball with those early 2000s uniforms. Like, I've been watching some of the early 2000s games on YouTube recently just because I can't get enough basketball right now. And it's just like, those feel right for Pitt basketball. Like, the ones we're wearing now, the blues and the whites are still beautiful. I still love them. Still should be our main go-to. But coming out with those block letter DeJuan Blair jerseys once a year for a home game, I think it would be pretty electric. And maybe some baggy shorts to go with it, some headbands.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, can we dig Sam Young's old shorts out of the closet? Because those would go down to his socks. I don't know how he was so good or how he can dunk, but it shows how athletic he was.
Those were shants, man.
Yeah.
Those were historic shants. I want shorts so long in these throwback games that like dribbles between the legs get caught up in all the extra fabric.
Maybe some baggy white tees too. The baggy white tee under the jersey was a staple of the 2003 Pitt team.
Yeah, in honor of Keith Benjamin, I think Nelly Cummings should break that out.
So glad we got weekly uniform talk out of the way, but I hate to interrupt it by saying that Joe Lunardi dropped an article today where he said that Pitt is a lock for the tournament. And that also feels pressing and like we should talk about it.
I don't think it was an article. I think someone wrote an article about the Joe Lunardi quote. Joe Lunardi mentioned that in studio. But either way.
Which is even better.
Joe Lunardi said,
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe Lunardi said that Pitt's a lock at this point. I don't think he definitely doesn't mean that in terms of like if Pitt loses out, they still get in. But basically, he's saying like, yeah, this team is tournament good. They're gonna get in. I think he said our ceiling is a 6 seed, which I'm guessing he's projecting a little bit of like they're gonna lose a couple games, and that's probably the highest they can get. But I'd be interested to see like if Pitt closes out the regular season here and maybe only drops one more game and then wins the ACC tournament. I'm not trying to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but I think an ACC champ Pitt team with 8 losses might be able to sneak into the 4 or 5 line. I don't know how that will work out. The ACC, obviously the laptops and the computers don't love the ACC, so that could be tough to overcome.
Yeah, if the nerds don't like it, that's what it's all about, I guess. It's just weird seeing the team first in the ACC, not ranked. I assume we'll be ranked by the time this comes out. Yeah, it'll be out by then. Maybe we'll be like 24, 25, but it's crazy to think like this might be the best or second best ACC team, and we're getting a 6 seed. Back in the day, there'd be like 5 Big East teams in like the top 4 seeds.
Yeah, I don't think whoever comes up with these metrics or these rankings loves an ACC with a mediocre UNC and Duke, and that we all have to suffer as a result of that.
Absolutely. I don't mind the 6 seed line anyway. I mean, that's saying that now. Like, if you imagine me saying that in November, like, oh, I wouldn't mind if Pitt was a 6 seed. Like, no kidding.
I guess I'd be okay with it.
The 5-12 games, like if we got bumped up to a 5, I'm just like, oh no, it's a 12-5, like upset. Every
the most
5.
dangerous seeding matchup.
Yeah, you're gonna run into like a 12 seed Kentucky or something and get very unlucky. I'd rather get that 6-11, probably get a team who was on the bubble, borderline, maybe like a mid-major team who snuck in at the end. But lock for the tournament is I can't even describe it right now. It's like a dream at this point.
I'm just thinking about us winning the first round game against the 10 seed and then going on to beat Purdue in the second round, and just how great that'll feel, because it's going to happen.
The Twins can sit on each other's shoulders to try to guard Edie.
He create a mega person.
As much as I would be petrified of running into Edie in the tournament, it would be objectively hilarious to see Guillermo or Jorge guarding him, and just like how much they would be falling on the floor, flopping, drawing fouls on him. Like, it would be a sight to see.
I would not be upset if Jeff Capel went full stop Edie and triple teamed him with the Twins and Federico and just let everyone else just jack up threes.
Hacking Edie.
I mean, you can let Ethan Morton shoot. He's shooting like 20% from 3 this year or something like that. So,
yeah,
the one that got away from Jeff Capel.
The one
should have been fired after he didn't get Ethan Morton. So, looking ahead, realistically, short term, long term, great goals. Short term, we got 2 games this week. Boston College, another team that's kind of in the same tier as Florida State. And then after that, we have Virginia Tech, who is 5-9 in the ACC, but they're feeling themselves a little bit lately.
Really excited to shit talk our new bosses about Virginia Tech, but no, that'll be good. I just take care of business against BC, who is bad, and I'm excited to get pretty jacked up for the game on Saturday. Is that home or is that in Blacksburg?
We're in Blacksburg for that one, so that'll be a big game. Obviously, one game at a time. Take care of Boston College on Tuesday, but that'll be a big one. Virginia Tech just beat UVA at home last week, so it's a tough place to win. And when they're at full strength, they're a tough out. So one game at a time. But here we are, fellas. It's mid-February, and we're talking about seeding situations for Pitt basketball.
Nature is healing.
Hey, Panther Nation. Have you ever crashed your spin scooter going down Cardiac Hill? Or wiped out on an icy sidewalk in South Oakland? Have you ever been hit by a bus crossing Forbes Avenue? Well, you may not have to pay that hospital bill on your own. If you're hurt in an accident, pick up the phone and call Guido at Gurrera Law. Guido Gurrera is a University of Pittsburgh Law School grad, Pitt football superfan, an experienced personal injury attorney who's licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And it is 100% free to call him for consultation on your personal injury case. So the next time you get rear-ended in Oakland rush hour traffic, or if you fall down the stairs at Peters, call Guido. All joking aside, Oakland and the world can be a very dangerous place. If you need legal help, talk to Guido. He'll treat you like a fellow Pitt fan and never like a number. 412-229-7757 is the number to call. That's 412-229-7757 to call Guido. You can also contact Gurrera Law at gurreralaw.com. That's Gurrera. Call Guido today. Please welcome on to the show assistant coach for the number 17 team in the country, the Pittsburgh Wrestling Panthers, Drew Headlee. Drew, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for joining us. This is a brave new world for us to cover wrestling a little bit. And I imagine that is the same for many of our listeners. So for the uninitiated, could you bring us up to speed on this year's team and what you guys have accomplished so far?
Yeah. So far we are 3-1 in the ACC. We have one match left. We'll wrestle Duke this coming Saturday, but we had a big win over Virginia Tech, who was ranked number 5 at the time. And then we kind of fell this past weekend to NC State, who was number 6 in the country. So that was a big matchup down at NC State. You know, guys fought hard, but came up a little short. But one more dual meet left before we head into our postseason, where we have our ACC championships and then the national tournament. So we finish up like mid-March.
Awesome. So a pretty successful season thus far. Is that pretty, for the very, very uninitiated, is that pretty par for the course? Is Pitt a wrestling power, or is this a program on the rise like so many of Pitt's athletic teams right now?
I think we have a pretty strong history in wrestling here. And I mean, even someone that doesn't know wrestling well, like, just for some reason, people always say it's like, oh, this is a powerhouse, which it is. You know, Pennsylvania, especially Western Pennsylvania, is really the best high school wrestling in the entire country. So we definitely have some good fans, some knowledgeable fans coming to our home matches, and that makes a great atmosphere for us. But yeah, we've always been a pretty solid team. You know, I wrestled at Pitt from 2003 to 2008, and you know, I'd say we're a little step up from that right now, where we're consistently, you know, a top 20 team, and we're knocking on the door to be, you know, that consistent top 10 team. So we're pretty close to that. We got a good thing going right now, and think the future looks bright.
You mentioned there that Pitt has a strong history and that you were a part of that history. You're a localish guy down from Waynesburg area. Was Pitt a dream school for you, or how'd you end up at Pitt?
You know, I didn't really know. I think a lot of kids growing up, you see, especially back then, you know, without social media, Iowa was always a big thing. Oklahoma State were like the perennial, like, number 1, number 2 teams. So
Those corn-fed boys.
Yeah. So you saw a lot of that. So I didn't really like have a particular team or a school that I knew I wanted to go to. My dad wrestled at a small school. He wrestled at Messiah College near Harrisburg. So I didn't really have a tie to any schools growing up, but my dad was a Pitt fan. One thing led to another, and you know, I couldn't be happier with the choice I made.
I mean, you're still here, so you must like it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, once I got to Pitt, there was no turning back. You know, I love the city. I love the university. I moved away for a couple years at different coaching positions, but I knew I would always end up back in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and you're a Pitt guy through and through. You're one of the first guests we've had that is like an avid listener of the show. So thank you for that. We've had the opportunity to tailgate with you and everything. Always a great time. So wanted to talk a little bit about your connection to Pitt. Can you share a couple memories you have as a student athlete at the University of Pittsburgh, and kind of how you think being a student athlete and the wrestling program have changed since then?
Yeah, I mean,
Loaded question. I apologize, but we
no,
love talking Pitt and all stories Pitt.
no, I mean, I think I told you guys this story before, but it goes back to the first day that I moved onto campus. My parents moved me into my dorm room in Sutherland Hall. Went down, gave my mom a hug, said goodbye. I get back in Sutherland Hall and I go into the elevator, and the doors start to close, and all of a sudden a hand like basically stops the doors from closing, and it opens back up. And meanwhile, I'm just like this little kid. I wrestled 125 pounds. I'm, 5'4" maybe as a freshman in college. And on walks Aaron Gray and Chris Taft, and they stand on either side of me. So I got, 7 foot and 7'1" standing over top of me. Like, what am I getting myself into? These guys are giants.
Just three guys on athletic scholarships.
Yeah, that's it. But, just being in Sutherland Hall, I mean, I've been a sports fan my whole life. I played a bunch of sports growing up, but then when I got to Pitt, I was already, following the basketball team. I love the football team. So always been a huge fan of other sports and what other people do. And then as an alumni now, it's like, we have so many teams that are doing well. I love following all of them and each of their successes.
So aside from the fancy new blue and gold colors that we have now, what are the biggest improvements in Pitt Athletics since the time that you were a student athlete here? Like facilities, anything?
I mean, my freshman year, we were Aeropostale. I mean,
yeah,
like, I don't know how many people even on this podcast remember those days, but like, I couldn't believe it. I remember shopping at that store in the mall when I was in high school, and it was like American Eagle, but it's like they were making all of our athletic gear. Like, our practice gear was all made by this Aeropostale brand that had no business in the athletic world, but that's what we were with. Now we can probably wear Nike and have much better colors and the Pitt script and all that. But yeah, we've come a long way for sure.
Those uniforms were so ugly, I think, for everything except basketball, and that's only because basketball was so good and so nationally relevant that we
just didn't matter.
We kind of like tie basketball to that navy blue and like dusty gold, but everything else looks so much better in the royal blue.
Yeah. I mean, it just pops more. It's like there were times when you could flip through the channels and you're like, oh, who's this team wearing the navy and the gold, and it didn't really pop. But now you turn on you're flipping through the stations watching football games, you're like, wow, those Pitt uniforms, they look good.
Oh yeah, they are so pleasing to the eye. Those are great. So in terms of preparation for the matches and everything like that, how much is grinding tape part of what you guys do?
It kind of depends on each wrestler. So as coaches, we watch a lot of film. We watch a lot of film on our upcoming opponents, our guys from previous matches, but each wrestler has their own way of going about what they like to do. And so we kind of cater to that. And we'll bring things to our guys of just anything like big that sticks out about their opponent. Like, hey, if they have one move that they do every single match, like, this is what you got to look out for. But really, when it comes down to it, it's like what you do yourself more than worrying about what this guy does. Because if you worry about your opponent and what they're doing, then that gets you off your own game plan. So we'll give the guys a little bit of advice and things to look out for. But for the most part, it's like we want our guys to be themselves and go out there and compete to the best of their ability. so that, they can put their best thing out on the mat.
Another form of wrestling preparation that most non-wrestlers might think is the craziest part about wrestling is cutting weight.
Yeah.
Do you have any insanely crazy cutting weight stories from back in the day? I know it's always the garbage bags and the saunas and all that.
Man, I mean, I used to cut way too much weight whenever I was younger, and I'm not like proud of that. I think the sport has changed some, and for the good, where guys are wrestling a little closer to their natural weights now, just because, man, when you cut too much weight, it obviously hurts your performance. So, and you only get 1 hour between the time you weigh in and the time you compete for our dual meets. So you don't really get a chance to gain or, replenish your body quite that much. But I mean, you still see it some. I mean, some guys, will gain 2 or 3 pounds after weigh-ins, but if you're a heavier weight or you wrestle later in the dual meet, some guys will put in a solid, 8 to 10 pounds in between the time they weigh in and time they wrestle. So
I've gained like 8 pounds in the last 5 years, I think. I don't know if I
yeah,
can pull that
but when
off.
you think about it, like just a bottle of water is 1 pound. So like if you haven't had much water in the past day to make weight, then you drink 2 bottles of water, that's just 2 pounds right in you right away. So it's definitely a different part of our sport that not a lot of people understand, and
Right.
definitely some horror stories about it. But I do think that we're going in the right direction now with where we're at.
I was always pretty perplexed by the whole weight component of wrestling because, from what I recall, a lot of bigger guys would try to drop weight classes because there was this whole thought of like, they can wrestle a little bit bigger, they're a little bit stronger, and if they can wrestle some guys that are naturally smaller than them, they can win. But then at the same time, if you are crash dieting, up to the hour before your match, I imagine that creates some level of fatigue in a sport that requires quite a bit of endurance. And then there's also, you throw in the fact that the lower weight ranges you get, and correct me if I'm wrong, but guys become more technically skilled. So how do you kind of balance all of that? And it sounds like it's curing itself as time goes on, but what was kind of the thinking behind going up and down weight classes?
Yeah. I honestly don't know how it started, but probably just like you said, it's like, well, if I weigh, 150 pounds, but I can lose, 9 or 10 pounds and the weight class is 141, then I'll probably be stronger than the guy that weighs 140. So I'm sure that's where it started. And then it got kind of out of control. And just where our sport's at right now, it's such a high level of competition. So like we said, it's hard to really, cut too much weight and then be your best, just an hour later. But, you just have to find the good balance. We have a nutritionist that works with our guys and, helps them to, eat the right things during the week. And then, the day of the competition, guys are probably losing, 3 to 4 pounds in a practice right before weigh-ins, and then you weigh in, gain those 3 or 4 pounds back, and you're hopefully, back to your normal self. But it's definitely a fine line of where is too much weight to cut and, what's the right amount.
Gotcha. So at the end of your career wrestling, is there a point where you guys get to do like the reverse NFL offensive lineman, where you get to just kind of gain as much weight as you want? Because you wrestled at 120 pounds. I was 120 pounds at 12 years old, and I am not very tall. So I guess you could say I was just kind of a fat kid. But once you retire and you aren't wrestling anymore, do you get to finally eat a whole pizza and like put it on a little bit?
Well, that's always the idea, is like, man, I'm going to gain so much weight once I'm done wrestling. And like you said, like I wrestled 125 my freshman year in college, and then I was 133 for 2 years, 141 my senior year. Now, when I was wrestling 125, I would still weigh 150 in, the off season or, even a couple weeks before the matches. So I was going from 125 to 150 back down to 125. And I kept thinking like, man, I'm going to be, 180 once I'm done wrestling, and I weigh 150 right now. So it's like your body kind of adjusts to like
Right.
your natural size. And I think that I've kind of settled in there, which I'm okay with. I did kind of have the binge, after you're finally done competing, you're like, I can eat anything I want and it doesn't matter. And then you do that for like a week and you're like, man, I feel like crap. Like I need to, clean some things up and, just be a normal person.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about nutrition that we don't understand. So we'll leave that to the nutritionists.
Yeah.
Something else that we don't understand, but hopefully you could explain. Why is Western Pennsylvania the best hub for wrestling in the country?
Yeah, you alluded to it earlier. Yeah.
Answer for that too. But, I think there's just a lot of tradition. We've always been kind of like a blue collar sport. It doesn't take much to wrestle, almost every high school, elementary school, they have a wrestling mat and you need a pair of shoes. And that's it, and someone else to wrestle. So there's always another kid around that is somewhat into it. And a lot of these places, like I grew up with some really good wrestlers. And, I was fortunate to have good training partners in that, from the time I started wrestling when I was, 4, 5, 6 years old, through high school and then college, as long as you're around someone else that has similar goals and aspirations that you do and is generally the same size, you're probably both going to continue to get better. And so I think that is just traditionally, happened here in Western Pennsylvania. And, I'm happy to be a part of it because you go to other places and it's like they think that they have it going on and they know what it's about. But, you come back home to the WPIL and, it's just different here.
Yeah, aren't there literally wrestling tournaments that are just the Whippeal's best versus the rest of the country?
Yeah, so there's an event at the end of the end of the high school season that is the WPIL versus they choose any state in the country, and
that is such a flex.
Yeah, they'll bring like the state champs from that state to wrestle the best guys in the WPIL. But then they also have all the state champs from Pennsylvania wrestle the U.S. All-Star team. And, it's a competitive match every single year that, the PA team always stands up to the U.S. All-Stars.
That is such a flex. Telling the whole country, bring us your biggest, strongest boys so we can kick the shit out of them.
Yeah. It's pretty fun to see.
And that's a big advantage for recruiting too. We talk about it a lot for football because, football's football, obviously. Right. So it's like, we got to keep the Whippeal kids home and come to
brain, yeah.
And look at the roster. There's a lot of PA kids, a lot of Western PA kids specifically. I'm sure that's your top priority for wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. We always try and keep the kids at home, and it's a little harder than some people think. These kids, they're getting offers from really big schools, and some of them want to experience something different than Pittsburgh, and you can't blame them for that. But we have a really good thing going right now, so definitely keeping those local kids home, and part of a great tradition that we have of developing local kids. It's important to us and is always going to be one of our number one recruiting things.
What, it doesn't have to be a specific number, but roughly what percent of the roster do you think is Whippeal kids right now?
Whippeal in general, I would say, over 50%. I think, we have 32 guys on our roster. And if I had to guess, maybe 5 or 6 are not from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then when you look at Western PA in general, we're probably 50 to 60% all Whippeal.
So this is really Pittsburgh's team.
Yeah.
Pitt wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's so many good kids. So, I mean, you can look at other schools too. And like, I think last year, half of Iowa's lineup was Pennsylvania. So, I mean, all the best.
They're a
schools,
powerhouse, right?
They're big time powerhouse. They're ranked number 2 in the country right now. So,
Oh, wow.
They're recruiting kids from here also. So that obviously makes it tough for us, competing against those big time schools.
So yeah, Iowa, number 2 in the country. Iowa's a huge wrestling state as well. Iowa State is number 3. You guys recently wrestled them, and it was a 15-15 tie, but you were telling us beforehand that you lost on something called criteria. I guess my question would be, how does scoring in wrestling work at all? What do any of those words mean?
All right. So in our dual meets that we have, we had Pitt versus Iowa State. There's 10 weight classes. So you wrestle the 10 weight classes. If we call it a regular decision, which means you win by either 1 point or up to 7 points, and the team gets 3 points for that. So that's what happened at all 10 weight classes. All 10 weight classes were very closely contested. They won 5 matches. We won 5 matches. So 5 times 3, you got 15 points.
So 3 points to win a match?
3 points to win a match.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if you win by more than that, you can get a major decision, which is worth 4 points. A tech fall means you win by 15 points, is worth 5, and a pin is worth 6 team points. So the team scoring can get, very different, but when it's a close matchup, 15-15 is as close as it gets, because like I said, they won 5 matches, we won 5 matches, and they were all very close. So then it came down to, the criterias of who's going to actually win the dual meet. And it actually came down to the total points scored. So like our 125 pounder won 3-1. Our 133, I think, won 5-4. So at that point, we're up 8-5. Well, then they had a couple where they outscored us by a little bit more. And I think the final score was like 51-46 of total points. So that's what the dual meet came down to. There are a lot of close ones. We lost our heavyweight match like right at the end, and that would have been a difference maker. But there were a lot of different things in the dual meet that could have gone just a little bit different to where we could have pulled it out. But man, it was an exciting duel. It was our best crowd of the year. People were excited to see a great matchup like that, and our guys all wrestled hard. So it was beneficial for us. Sometimes, it looks great to beat a team 50-0 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But our guys get a lot more experience out of wrestling those high level teams and preparing us for the national tournament rather than just beating up on, a lower level team.
I got you. And I know people say like there's no such thing as a moral victory, but there is a such thing as iron sharpens iron when you're wrestling a top 3 team in the country.
And especially because of like there's the individual matchups, which is so different from any other sport. It's like,
right.
We have a guy on our team at the time was ranked number 2 in the country, Nino Bonacorsi, and he wrestled the guy that was ranked number 3 in the country. So they'd never wrestled each other before, and now he gets the win over this guy who's number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then the number 1 guy lost earlier in the week. So now Nino's ranked number 1 and has wins over, the number 3 guy, the number 5 guy, the number 6 guy. And going into the nationals, it's great to have that experience and know what to expect for the NCAAs.
So at its core, these college wrestling meets are like how many matches? You said 5. Our 5 best guys fight your 5 best guys one at a time, and whoever wins the most fights wins.
10. Total of 10.
Total of 10?
Yep, total of 10 weight classes. So yeah, our 10 guys versus your 10, and let's see what happens. Yeah.
That is cool. The word criteria, I think, tripped me up, but it's basically just the tiebreaker is
the tiebreaker
points. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
They should just say that for us,
Yeah.
So you guys are, it sounds like you're really rounding into form for the ACC championships and going into NCAA. When did you say that those tournaments were?
The ACC championships is the first weekend in March. So I believe it's on Sunday, March 5th or 6th. I think it's the 5th. And then the NCAAs are 3 days, 2 weeks later. They're in Tulsa, Oklahoma this year. They'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So really that's like the best 33 guys at each weight class meet in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, they have the 125-pound weight class, top 33 guys go, and, all the way down to who's the national champ. And then, the top 8 guys are named All-Americans. So
you said that the team's in a good spot right now. You have one dual meet left in the championships. What would a successful championship season look for Pitt?
So we actually we're going to redshirt our heavyweight, who is like kind of freshman phenom right now. So that
we've even heard about him. Yeah.
You've heard about him?
Yeah.
Dayton Pitzer is going to be a stud. So make sure you keep an eye out in the following years for him. But he's going to redshirt this year. So he won't compete in the ACC championships, but really we have definitely 3 guys that when we go to the national tournament can place really high. I mean, we have a guy ranked number 1, number 3, and number 6 in the country right now. So if those guys do what they're supposed to do and All-American and potentially win the nationals, then we're looking at placing a top 10 as a team at the NCAAs. And at the ACC tournament, it'll be tough because of just the way the format is. NC State and Virginia Tech are really good teams. And it'll be tough to beat them, but definitely possible if we show our best selves there.
Awesome. Sounds like we have some pretty high expectations this year.
Yeah. So top 10 in the country would be really big for us.
When's the last time we had that kind of finish?
Well, we finished 11th 2 years ago, and that was the highest we'd placed in the last 20, maybe even 30 years.
Wow.
It's been a long time since we placed that high. So I'd say we're generally in that 10 to 20 range, but if we can break into the top 10, that'll be a great season for us.
So we're looking at a generational, Pitt team, all made up of mostly Pittsburgh guys. There's no reason that loyal sons out there shouldn't be, packing the field house to watch you guys on the weekends.
Exactly. They're a good time. You get to, it's generally like a fight with rules. So, guys getting to go out there just to see who's tougher, whether it's, strength, speed, it's a little bit of everything. It's not quite MMA, but everybody loves watching the UFC on TV. So it's definitely a good atmosphere to come out to, watch some high level wrestling. Even if you don't quite understand the scoring, my wife comes every match, but she's still trying to get a hold of all the scoring, but she still likes watching. So
it's, even without the points, it's, I imagine it's like a beautiful ballet of 2 dudes trying to bloody each other,
Exactly.
for the layman. So we really appreciate you joining us today. Just had one more question for you. So you yourself are a very accomplished wrestler, 4-time WPIAL top 4 finisher, 3-time state qualifier. You won a AAA state title in 2002, finished with almost 140 wrestling victories in high school, and that's just high school. Then you went on to wrestle at a Division I level, a high-level Division I level. So my question is, could the 3 loyal sons in a 3-on-1 combat situation pin you? We're missing Dylan today, but he's if you can picture him, he's pretty wiry and he's pretty tough. So, factor that in how you will.
Okay. Pin is going to be real tough. I think I could take you all 3 there. Could I pin all 3 of you at once? I doubt that. I'll take you guys on that one, but I like my chances.
I don't know.
I mean, one of us has wrestled in elementary school. The other two,
Yeah, I won the
Yeah.
2001 Mars beginners tournament, and Squid was a Division II walk on the UPJ cross country team. So we are athletes.
Okay. All right. Well, that adds a little bit to it, but I'll still bet on myself on that one.
yeah, our cross country runners are known for their strength and technical skills. So
I was a cross country runner in high school too. So
it helps with some things, not wrestling.
Not everything, but
yeah,
I enjoy it.
Okay, well, maybe we'll hit the gym and run this back next year. See if the
next year at I almost said Heinz Field, but down in Acrisure Stadium, we'll meet in the parking lot.
Yeah. After a couple icy light mangoes, I think we'll be ready to throw down on the concrete.
Yeah. All right. Let's set it up.
We'll have the medics on standby.
I'm gonna get those cute little earmuffs so that you don't rip.
Let's just get rid of those. Let's get rid of the headgear. I think it looks stupid, and they don't help at all. So I don't know why
they don't. Oh, I was told if I didn't wear one, my ears would get ripped off, and I was like, yeah, I mean, okay.
I was told I had to wear one, and my ears still look like this. So
yeah, get a little bit of the cauliflower ear action.
Yeah, we got a lot going on, but like the headgear doesn't even really help it that much.
I have a lot of questions about singlets too, but we can unpack all of that the next time you come on the show.
Okay.
After your top 10 finish.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with the upcoming championships, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys. Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt. Thank you to Coach Drew for joining us. Really enjoyed having him on. If you haven't been out to see the Pitt Wrestling Panthers yet, they have a match coming up against Duke February 18th. That's a Saturday, Fitzgerald Fieldhouse at noon. Should be a good win for the Panthers, knock on wood, but go out and see the boys. They are a team of local guys, whippeal kids, and they might be one of the best Pitt teams we've had in quite a while per Coach Drew. So go check them out. Thanks again. Before we wrap up, as always, you guys want to hit me with a couple final thoughts to send us into the week?
I have a bold prediction I'll make. We are recording this. I'll show my phone as proof. This is Sunday at 1:53. The Super Bowl hasn't happened yet. You might be listening to it after.
Wallpaper. Love it.
And I'm predicting an Avonte Maddox interception. He's going to have a big interception on Pat Mahomes tonight. Only Pitt guy on the field. He's going to make a big impact.
Yeah.
I mean, Pitt men tend to do that, especially Pitt defensive backs. So
remember last Super Bowl?
Are we going to just cut that part out, Squid, if he doesn't get it?
He's going to.
You're right. What am I thinking?
And that's a lot of work to go back.
We have integrity.
Change it, so yeah, we left the Nike tweet up, so we can leave this in the pod. So what a ride.
Touche.
Don't let me down, Avonte.
Well, for me, I've been doing a lot of thinking recently. I have 2 tattoos. Just 2. I got them both by the time I was 20 years old. And as soon as I got the second one, I was like, I can't wait to get another.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Here I am, 26 years old, and I still only have the 2 tattoos. But I'm getting the itch for another. And I've decided, it's going to take a little bit of something to push me over and actually take up the effort to go to the tattoo shop and get it done and squeeze the chair because I'm a little baby and tattoos do hurt.
Just get hammered beforehand.
Yeah, I heard that's exactly what they teach you to do. I am going to get a Hail to Pitt tattoo if they win the ACC tournament in basketball.
Whoa.
What's the design?
That's
an H2P, Hail to Pitt and script. You thought that far ahead?
No, this is very off the cuff here.
Perfect.
I haven't done much planning whatsoever. So
it'll be just like when you got your nose and ears pierced?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Not much planning or thought going into it. I will. I'll think about the design. If anyone has any ideas, definitely send them in. We'll take a look and see what works best. But yeah, I think Pitt's on a roll right now. They're playing their best basketball. They're peaking. So if they win that ACC tournament in Greensboro, I'll be getting a Pitt tattoo.
It's a lot of pressure on our Panthers.
Hey, they can handle it.
Wow, that's a big one. That's a true loyal son right there.
There's any tattoo artists out there listening, warm up your hands, your wrists, get your tattoo thingy
Gun.
ready.
Gun.
Gun's coming once Pitt wins.
Squid outing himself as a non-tattoo guy.
I would love to go directly after the game, but that's the ACC championship also falls on the same day as the St. Patty's Day parade in Pittsburgh this year. And
Oh, you gotta.
it's just, no, I can't. You just said get drunk before you go. And I guess that would fall in line there. Enough of my final thought.
Okay.
You have something for us. I've been waiting for it all week.
Yeah.
So the loser of last week's Mount Washington that he just had in the bag, I would like to go back and listen to how confident and how the shit-eating grin you had on your face when you took Florida State and Clemson.
I got the best 2 picks and pick 3 and 4.
Listen,
Are you guys idiots?
I did not call you guys idiots.
How stupid are you guys? I can't believe I do a show with you two. Something
These
like
are not
that.
direct quotes. No, this could have been a big opportunity for me to look within and think like, wow, am I really that disconnected with the common man and the common fan? But I didn't do that. I'm disappointed in our listeners. I won. I guess I just think less of Pitt fans now because I had to go see 80 for Brady, despite very clearly winning that Mount Rushmore. But whatever.
Here's the thing. You lost. You got last place. It was your Mount Washington idea, and you came up with the punishment. You have no excuses. This was your thing.
My excuse is that I was right and everybody else was wrong. But being a man of integrity, I went to the Friday matinee of 80 for Brady, and I have some thoughts.
Do tell.
So my first question going into this, and I tried to go in with a very open mind, was who is this for? Who the fuck is this movie for? You have 4 of the most iconic and talented female entertainers of the 20th century in one movie. Sally Field, Lily Tomlin, the Jane Fonda, and Rita Moreno. Between them, that is 13 Emmys, 3 Grammys, 3 Tonys, 10 Oscar nominations, and 3 Peabodys, which is weird because Peabodys are for journalism. So I don't really get that, but all that to say, like this is an all-star cast in 1968. Like icons. But a movie about Tom Brady's Super Bowl win over the Falcons. So I'm just trying to figure, like, is this a movie for octogenarian football fans who live in Boston? I don't know. So I went trying to just uncover this question, and what I found out is that this movie is for nobody.
It's for
Who was in the
people-
theater with you?
I was the only one in the theater under 70, I want to say.
It was also a Friday afternoon matinee.
So I was the only one in the entire movie theater in Aspinwall under the age of 70. So, that probably tainted the sample. But I would say people in there with me saw Rita Moreno in West Side Story in like 1960 and are just happy they get to see her in one more. She's got an EGOT, by the way. Anyway.
I don't know what that is.
An Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And it's like the most rarefied air in entertainment. And she has that. And she was in 80 for Brady. So to speak to the movie itself, honestly, it had decent potential But it's like a surprising amount of potential for a movie for nobody. It's kind of heartfelt, and I did chuckle once or twice. And at its core, it's about a group of friends uniting around a common cause. The New England Patriots. That's basically a symbol for that their fight together when Lily Tomlin's character had cancer, and it's this big symbolic thing, this uniting factor that has kept them together and gave her something to fight for. But at the end of the day, it's pretty half baked. Like they don't capitalize on the little potential there is. I'm getting too analytical. Here's the part that you guys really want. The funniest part about this movie is that Jane Fonda's character plays a Rob Gronkowski erotic fan fiction novel writer. Like she writes erotic fan fiction about Rob Gronkowski. And then she meets Rob Gronkowski, and he says to her that he doesn't go anywhere without the book, which again is erotic fan fiction about himself. So one, the implication that such a thing could exist, and two, it implies that Rob Gronkowski has ever read a book. That is the funniest part of this movie, and it's almost worth the price of admission. It's not, but it's the best thing in the movie. And then
that is a real book. I did hear
what
in like a tweet that they actually wrote like a few chapters just because, so that it wouldn't be like a blank book or like a random book. There's a few entries in there. I did not read what those were, but they do exist for anyone out there who might be. Nobody out there is interested in that. Who might?
That's. I'll be honest. That kind of just like purely out of curiosity.
To remember.
Yes.
I mean, it's on Amazon. You can put it in your Kindle.
How much?
$7.99 for paperback. Book 1 in the Rob Gronkowski erotica series.
So does the loser of the next one have to buy the book and read it?
Yeah. I was going to say we need a Loyal Sons book club. But I like that idea more. Yeah, so Rob Gronkowski fan fiction exists. It is a real thing. I don't want to know what a gronking is, but I think I have a couple ideas. Yeah. So that was a cameo worth almost half the price of admission. The only other note I have, because I'm sure you guys are probably done with this by now, Tom Brady steals the show.
How much is he in it?
He's in like the last 15 minutes. There's this really like the climax of the movie is they're down 28-3 to the Falcons, and these four women break into the coordinator's office, like the booth, and steals a mic and gives Tom Brady this big pep talk about like how he saved her from dying of cancer and how the Tom Brady she knows would never give up. And it's completely undercut by Tom Brady just staring.
That was actually just a cough. I wasn't laughing.
Squid just going into a coughing fit over this plot line.
Carry on.
This entire scene is undercut by Tom Brady just staring up at the press box, listening intently, like holding his helmet to the side of his head, staring like this. Not blinking, not breaking his expression for like a full 3 minutes while she gives him this rah-rah speech. Other than that, he is in the last couple minutes and he is obnoxiously charming, and I hated it. But
sounds like there should have been a delay of game penalty during that.
Yeah, I don't know. They played pretty fast and loose with the whole football thing. But went really heavy on like the Boston aspect of things. So again, who is this movie for?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. After we did the Not Washington, I was like, at this point, I wouldn't mind going to see this movie. I was seeing some tweets like, oh, it has some heart.
It's got some heart. You feel.
After your synopsis of it, I have my answer. I won't be seeing this movie.
You won't be seeing it?
No.
I don't need the full movie. I might look up a few clips. I have very low standards for movies, so
Yeah, one
still not
day,
making the cut.
Squid, if we ever just start beating the hell out of you in Mount Washington's and we need to get your heart up a little bit, we're gonna do a Mount Washington of shark movies.
We
And
need
you can
more
just
than
clean
4.
us up.
Off the top of my head, we're going Sharknado 1, Jaws 3, Trailer Park Shark Attack, and Sharknado 3, I think.
I have a lot of questions, but I really think this needs to be its own segment at some point.
Okay. Ghost Shark, honorable mention. That's all you're getting.
So I guess to sum it all up, go see Ghost Shark. Probably don't see 80 for Brady.
Sounds good enough for me. Super Bowl's in a few hours, so
I think we're done here.
we good? Got anything else for our final thoughts? Final.
Sally Field is a national treasure.
Hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.
So is Federico.